let's now take a look at the fantasy hockey playoff strength of schedule. So like I said, we're going to start with the best schedules overall, and we're going to do the ones that overlap between the two playoff formats and then kind of focus in a little bit more narrowly. So let's start with the best overall, and that is the Dallas Stars. They grade out very well in both the week 22 to 24. They have the second best schedule overall. In week 23 to 25, they have the third best schedule overall. So no matter the format, the Dallas Stars are a team worth targeting as we move closer to the trade deadline. So, we've been talking about buying low on Wyatt Johnston forever, and how we talked about it on last week's episode as the window is starting to close. Well, after having a natural hat trick yesterday, I think it's safe to say the buy low window has officially shut. He has 8 goals, 23 points in his last 18 games. Jason Robertson as well. We talked about how that buy low window is well shut. 23 points in his last 16 games, including 10 goals. So, obviously, I still think that these are guys that you can acquire. You're just going to have to give up bigger assets. One of the teams that we're going to talk about in a second that has just a terrible schedule moving forward is the New York Rangers. So a guy like Artemi Panarin for Jason Robertson is a deal that might get accepted. Even there's a chance that Panarin outplays Robertson the rest of the fantasy regular season. But come playoffs, Robertson might be the much more valuable player to own, just given the strength of schedule, given the quantity of games at that time. So obviously for me, guys like Robertson and Johnson, I'm going to go big game hunting. If I can get them, that's the ideal targets. But there are obviously lower tier targets. So D, who are some of the lower tier Dallas Stars that you're looking at?
Yeah, I think one name that you need to keep an eye on is Mason Marchment at 32% owned. We still don't have a definitive timeline in terms of when he'll be back available. They said the most recent update we got was they said that he's not close to a return, but he has returned to skating, which should put him on a timeline to be available for the fantasy playoffs. And he's just 32% owned. Obviously has that IR or out eligibility, so you can stash him in an IR spot if he is available. If you're in a good spot in your league already and don't expect to be in a dogfight down to the wire in terms of making the playoffs, then I think he's a guy that makes sense just to stash on your bench in terms of just thinking of the potential production he could bring, how hot of a start he was up to at the beginning of the season. So he makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Logan Stankoven's another one at 20% owned. Could be worth stashing probably as we get closer to the start of the fantasy playoffs. Again, if you're able to secure your spot early, of course, you need to make sure you get there first or all of this is moot. But and then I think another name that's just worth highlighting is Jamie Benn. He might be a guy that in standard formats you're considering dropping at times, just 31 points in 50 games. He's down to 59% owned, still bringing a lot of value in hits and PIMS leagues. But even in standard leagues, I think this is someone that's worth holding on to for the playoffs, right? Again, the priority is making sure you get there first. But if you're in a good spot, he's someone that I think could definitely help you when the postseason rolls around, given the schedule.
Yeah, and someone also that I want to add in is someone that we mentioned, I believe it was 2 weeks ago when we were doing deep sleepers is our boy Daddy. He's absolutely tearing it up on first line right now. He's got 15 points in his last 17 games, shooting the puck nearly two times per game. If you're in a very, very deep league and he keeps staying in that position and keeps succeeding, he's definitely worth a look as you head into the playoffs here. And even I was actually talking to a listener, fellas, yesterday out on the West Coast, who was telling me that once their playoffs start, they can't pick up anyone. So I think it's good that we do this show just because there are people in that position where they need to make these grabs now. So I think that players like that are great ones to suggest. Absolutely. So nice.
Just for the people at home that don't know who Daddy is, that's Evgenii Dadonov. We talked about
should have said that 5% owned Evgenii Dadonov.
Yeah. D, last week we were talking about Matt Duchene as a sell high. Are you still willing to maybe acquire him if the price is right for this playoff stretch?
Yeah, I think it's a tricky one given the fact that, we expect the production to come down. So it all comes down to price. But, I think it's worth investigating because, given the schedule, he's a guy that can certainly run hot again in the postseason. But just so many numbers point to some impending regression here. So it's a little bit of a trickier one.
And for me, the one guy that stands out as a nice buy low right now is Rupe Hintz, just because he's on the third line, second power play unit. Owners might be panicking a little bit, and you might be able to get him cheaper than you should be able to, because I would imagine he'll be back on that top line and top power play unit before long. Okay, one of the other teams, or the only other team that has a really nice schedule that overlaps over the two formats, is the Ottawa Senators. So in the week 22 to 24, format, they have the third best strength of schedule, and then weeks 23 to 25, they have the second best schedule overall. So this is a team that's super interesting right now because they have basically been without Linus Ullmark for a month now, and they've seemed to gone into a defensive shell of sorts without Ullmark. They're playing much more low event defensive hockey, trying to kind of insulate Levi Merilainen and Anton Forsberg. Linus Ullmark looks like he's going to be back soon. We'll see if the offense takes a step forward once that happens, if they kind of open things back up. But as of late, I mean, this is a team offensively that is not producing, and the Stars have not been immune to this. I mean, Brady Tkachuk has been as cold as you could possibly be. He just had a 10-game pointless streak snapped. Tim Stützle has been marginally better, but not noticeably. So, Beebs, like, are these guys, given this playoff schedule, are these guys that you're 100% interested in buying low on right now and hoping it gets better? Or are you nervous that the offense is going to continue to struggle?
It won't struggle this much. It's actually pretty much impossible, I think, with Brady TK's shot totals and just the high intensity hockey he plays to keep this up. Actually, we were on Twitter last week. The Montreal fans were going nuts because Lane Hutson actually passed Brady TK in points, which is pretty hilarious for a rookie defenseman. But no, I think that there's never been a better time to buy low on some of these players, and especially with a show like this where we're focusing on needing them later on. You could definitely trade someone who's maybe been a little hotter lately and make that move for someone who shoots a lot less for Brady TK. But there's a couple other names out there that have really stepped up as of late that you could maybe get that might not have such a high price tag. And Claude Giroux is one of them. He's currently on line one with Brady TK and Tim Stützle. He's currently on top power play, and he has 9 points in his last 10 games. He's really picked it up as of late, struggled to start the year, and we've seen the shot totals kind of go up as that's happened. So as Giroux sticks in that top 6 role in on that top power play, he definitely has value. Unfortunately for Giroux to get on that top power play, our boy Josh Norris had to take a little bump to power play 2. But if you do want to look at someone a little bit deeper in leagues, Norris is currently 32% owned. We've seen him when he is on the top power play have success, and he's at up to 17 goals this year. He's actually second on Ottawa in goals this year. So if they do need that scoring touch back on the top line, he's definitely someone I'd look to add. And if you're getting really, really, really deep with it, Shane Pinto actually has been playing quite well as of late. Pinto has 8 points in his last 10 games. He's got 22 shots during that time. So he's ripping the puck quite a bit, and he's actually averaging 19:47 time on ice during that period. So as much as he's not playing much power play time, he is getting a shit ton of 5v5 time. So Pinto's kind of really stepped his game up as of late. I know that he's on the radar in a lot of deep leagues, and at his current 9% ownage, if he does find his way up to that top power play, he's definitely worth a look. But if you are in a very deep league, he's also still worth a look with those other numbers. So I do like some of the names out in Ottawa, and I would not be afraid to target them. I think this is just a cold stretch where they're playing great defensive hockey because they're still winning.
Yeah, I think Shane Pinto is probably a guy that sticks around on free agency for a while. He's probably more of a streaming option at this point, and you can probably add him right before the playoffs. But buying low on Claude Giroux, even Drake Batherson right now, like, I don't think those guys are going to cost much of anything. They might even be available on your waiver wire right now. Guys that can be solid rest of season that, could be huge parts of your team in the fantasy playoffs when the schedule lines up.